Welcome, everybody. Thank you for attending. I'm David Bobanek, and I'm going to be helping to moderate today's session. Satellite clubs are out of this world. Before we start, we have a couple of housekeeping rules. If you have any technical questions, please be sure to write them in the chat field, and I'll do my best to try to help. Note that today's session is being recorded. All participants' videos and microphones are going to be turned off. We would request that you remain muted throughout the session. If you do have a question during the session, please use the raise hand feature. So if you're on your computer, many of you are used to this. If you click on participants at the bottom of your screen, a window will pop up and you'll be able to use the raise hand option. Also showing up there will be the yes and no options that you can click on. So if you have any questions, please go ahead and ask me in the chat box. Otherwise, you should be able to see everything in that participant screen. So if you're on a mobile device, please click more, and then you can select raise hand. So when it's time for questions, I will unmute you and call on you to ask your question or to speak. And I'm going to do that in the order of who raised their hands first. So you'll be sent a survey in the next day or two for looking for input on how you feel that the session went. We really value your input and appreciate that if you would fill that out. Thank you for attending today's presentation, and now it's my honor to introduce you to your trainer, Steve Lingenbrink.
Very good. All right. Yeah, as David mentioned, my name is Steve Lingenbrink. Many of you know me. I was president of my club back in 2005, served as governor in 2012-13, and currently you're Rotary coordinator for Zone 27. I'd like to take a moment and introduce two very good friends of mine that will be helping with the presentation this afternoon. First is Corey Lopardi. Corey Lopardi has some very impressive acronyms in front of his name. He was immediate past district membership chair for District 5020. He's currently serving as one of my assistant Rotary coordinators, and just really love having Corey on the team. And he's also one of the team members of the new club task force that was just started by Rotary International. So if you have questions about starting new clubs or need help with starting new clubs, Corey's your man. And then my right-hand person from Rotary International headquarters, Julie Aubry. Julie is our regional membership officer. And so she's responsible for both of our paired zones, zones 26 and 27. She's an employee, a staff member back at One Rotary Center, and just a phenomenal asset that I use on a daily basis to do my job as the Rotary coordinator. And she's available for you as a resource to be able to tap into. And the neat thing is, if you email her or call her, she actually responds. It's really pretty amazing. So thank you for joining us, Corey and Julie. We really appreciate you taking time out of your busy days to be here with us today. The theme of the International Vision Statement for Rotary is, together we see a world where people unite and take action to create lasting change across the globe, in our communities, and in ourselves. And I think that last comment, in ourselves, is so applicable to looking at the satellite concept, because we need to make self-evaluation of where our club currently is and where we're going and where we want it to go in order to decide whether or not the satellite model is something that we want to explore. Today, we're going to break the session into 6 major goals. And of course, like anything Rotary, we always want to start with the why. And so why start a satellite club? That'll be the first issue that we're going to tear into. And then kind of into the nuts and bolts, what is a satellite club and what isn't a satellite club? And then once we answer the why, we'll move into the how to actually start a club, how to begin with the exploration of the idea with our existing club. And then once that decision's made, how to make it official. And then, of course, the most important part, nurturing and supporting that club. So I'm going to turn it over to Corey to start by addressing the why.
Let's look at reasons why you might want to start a satellite club. First, I want to talk about Rotary Club culture. Think about your own Rotary Club and whether or not any of these things sound familiar. Meeting every week, meeting at the same venue every week, guest speakers on a regular basis, maybe a board made up of president, secretary, treasurer, having directors and committees, a club meeting decorated with flags and banners, paying yearly dues and meal costs, not spending any time on money or club promotion because it's not in the budget, and everyone changes roles in the club every year. Does that sound like your club? All 8 of them, more than 4? Go ahead and give a yes or a no, depending on whether you think that applies to your club. Okay, we're starting to populate a few people. So far about 50-50. Only got a few votes. That is in your participants pane. Yes is the green check and X is the no. Anybody else? Okay. There, they're starting to come in, and it looks like the majority of you say yes, that sounds like your club. Well, if it does, Steve, that was Rotary in 1905. So, and what Rotary is finding from that is that every year, if we move forward in our slide, over 100,000 members are leaving Rotary, and the majority of them had been in Rotary for less than 10 years. So a lot of people are coming in, but a lot of people are heading out. And if we look at the next slide, the majority of those members are leaving because the club they're involved in is not meeting their needs. And the worst part is that 43% of them wouldn't recommend their club to somebody else. And a third of them wouldn't even recommend Rotary to their friends or coworkers. So one approach to keeping those members in Rotary is starting a satellite club. Now you might be saying, well, won't a satellite club just become its own club someday? Won't we lose members to a satellite? Well, the answer is you might, but those members are probably going to leave anyway. And if we don't meet their needs when they're in Rotary, it leaves a pretty bad impression. So what is a satellite club? Well, it is an alternative meeting day or time, and it's a way to attract a demographic of people to Rotary. It's an extension of a current Rotary club. It's not a separate club, a potential incubator for a new Rotary club, and it's really a way to re-energize Rotary. So what a satellite club is not a name for a Rotaract club. It's not a substandard for any membership in Rotary. All satellite club members are full Rotarians. They're full Rotary members. Satellite club members have all the same responsibilities and hold up the same values as any other Rotarian. And it's also not a separate club. Satellite club members are full members of the charter club, and that satellite club is sponsored by that charter club. Satellite club is also not a fixed for low membership. Don't expect to have a satellite club or a satellite of your club to attract more people to be in your club. There has to be a purpose for that club first, and that purpose just can't be to inflate your membership numbers.
We are going to break out into some small group discussion. And for those of you that have never had this experience before, what will happen is when Corey turns on the breakout rooms, it's going to move you electronically into a small group where you are going to pick someone to take notes and discuss the question, why might you start a satellite club? All right, why might you start a satellite club? Now, it's really important to pick someone to take notes, because when we come back out to the main room after 10 minutes, we will be having that person that takes a note report out what the top 2 best ideas were that you came up with in the breakout room as to why you might want to start a satellite club. Okay? Is everyone okay with that? I'm seeing some nods. That's good. That's good. So we'll go ahead, Corey, and populate the work groups. Well, as we said when we went into the breakout rooms, we're now going to have an idea or two from each of the groups to, I was in the group with Amy Huggins there. Amy was our scribe. And so, Amy, could you tell them a little bit about what we discussed in our room, the top 2 ideas?
Yeah, the top 2 ideas were start a satellite club because needing a different time of day to attract Rotarians. Like in Enumclaw, Nancy was saying that they have a lot of small business millennial owners and they can't come to a noontime meeting, but they possibly could come to a breakfast meeting. And Mark, who's on Vancouver Island, said the same thing, that it might be for a cost reason, that they would offer an evening meeting that would be a lower cost per meal, just have a cocktail kind of thing, rather than a full meal during the, because they already have a noon and morning meeting in their existing club. So they were just looking at evening. So time of day was one thing. And then in my club, we're also thinking about, people are now used to using Zoom for our club meetings. So when we get back together physically, we're still going to offer a Zoom option during our club meeting so that other people who are not as comfortable coming out of coronavirus can do it from their own home.
Great. Thanks, Amy. Appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Now we're going to hear from the second group. Who was the spokesperson for the second breakout group?
That would be Rosemary. Rosemary, would you mind sharing? I know that you were summing up the two big reasons we came up with, but I think that you had plenty to go off of.
Right. Okay. So our group had 2 reasons, really 2.5 reasons. The first one was really the essential problem that current members can't meet with the club, or potential members can't meet with the club under its current design, regardless of what that might be. Related to that was the reality of what we've experienced with Zoom calls, many alternatives, a lot of wine involved, except it's at our own desktop. More affordable for folks, no traffic jams, has worked very well for people with dogs, kids, seniors. It's worked for a whole lot of different folks. And so seeing that sort of fits into, it's a totally different venue. And the other why, the second why, and this is a Howard why, was to bring back Rotarians who've left Rotary or left their club. And for whatever reason, sometimes they've left the area, it's come too pricey, a whole lot of reasons, but maybe the club that reaches out to them with the package of choices could bring them back. So those were our 2.
Those are excellent. Thank you, Rosemary. Appreciate that. The third group, who was the spokesperson for the third breakout room?
I believe that is me, Virginia McKenzie.
Hey, Virginia, take it away.
So, yes, thank you. So y'all took the top ideas, but we have one more to add in addition to all the other good ideas shared, and that is organizing around a particular service project topic. So for example, at Seattle Rotary this year, we've taken an interest point in the intersection point between homelessness, drug addiction, and mental illness. And maybe a satellite club would be a way to mobilize around that topic on service. So, so not exactly sure how that would look. Kind of wondering if a satellite club is a good idea for this, but in addition to the other ideas shared, you could organize around a service project.
Good, good, very good. Well, almost cause-based.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So we heard from our 3 groups, and we appreciate the input. Well, first, we want to talk about 3 real-life examples, 2 successes and 1 challenge. And the first is an example out of Reno, Nevada. There was an incoming governor that was very interested in seeing if they formed an evening satellite club, if they could get more of their members to attend the meetings. And so they did, they kicked it off at first as just an alternative meeting time, but it was so successful that they decided to convert it into a formal satellite club. That club actually started creating more interest for attending by younger people that were in the area. And it's now one of the most successful satellite clubs on the West Coast. So real good example of how they could take that idea, try it as an alternative meeting time, and then when it was successful, they went ahead and took the plunge and turned it into a satellite club. Julie?
I wanted to share the example of the Chicago Cosmopolitan Club, and that started as a satellite of Chicago One, which is a large formal club that meets downtown, I believe at noon. It's the first Rotary Club, so there's a lot of history and a lot of tradition, a lot of pomp and circumstance, very formal meeting. The only hiccup was that when they started the satellite, I think that there was not enough communication to really set the expectations of what the satellite would be. As it started to grow and find its own place, I think Chicago One had expected that this would just be a smaller copy, slightly less formal, and meeting at a different time and day, where really it organically became much more social and project focused, no formality to it. So they meet downtown Chicago, I believe on Wednesday evenings. They tend to rotate between two very trendy bars where they have special happy hour drinks that the club members can participate in. And then there's a separate meeting room at the bars as well. Very, very fresh, energetic group. And they even have like a youth volleyball beach team. Like they are extremely socially active, and when they're not doing social stuff, they're doing service or combining it. So it's just a different flavor of Rotary altogether, and doesn't mean that what Chicago One is doing isn't good, but I'm glad that they came to an understanding that really this is something that the club wanted to become, and that was very different from the sponsor club it stemmed from.
Great example, and involving the very first Rotary Club ever formed in 1905. Very nice. Let's see then. Corey, you've got an example that might present a bit of an example of a challenge that a club ran into.
Yeah, the story I wanted to share is more of a cautionary one. It covers two of the things to look out for when considering starting a satellite club. So we have a club in our district that was started a few years back, and the club has grown consistently since it started. When they heard about the idea of starting a satellite club, they jumped right on it right away, and they targeted a local retirement community as the place to start the new satellite. They already had a member who was living in that community, and the community had a brand new restaurant that was opening up that was looking to hold meetings, and there were hundreds of potential Rotarians that might not be able to make a regular club meeting, but there was no reason they couldn't meet for lunch only a few blocks or a few feet away from where they lived. So the sponsor club had held a couple of meetings, and then they started the new satellite with about 15 to 20 members. After a year, the club folded quietly. It isn't really discussed by the sponsor club. So what went wrong? Why did the satellite club last less than a year? Well, first, it was started to bring Rotary to a new group of community members, but current Rotarians in that club weren't looking to attend another meeting time. So after a couple of months, they stopped attending the satellite. These new Rotarians from the satellite, who didn't really know what Rotary was, and they weren't looking to travel to other clubs to find out, stopped attending their own meetings. So there was no one from the sponsor club supporting this new club on a regular basis and helping the members to become Rotarians. And the other issue was that the new satellite members were having to pay dues for the privilege of having lunch together and hearing a speaker. Now, they could do that already for free at the retirement home. As a matter of fact, there were lots of things they could do for free with their time, and paying for Rotary didn't have to be one of them. So that's why the satellite went away.
Great example, Corey. Well, think to yourself, what might we have learned from these three examples? And if you've got some kind of a golden nugget that you pulled out from this one, just go ahead and write it down in the chat box. And we're going to go ahead and move forward with the presentation. But if you feel like you learned something from those any of those three examples, or maybe all three, just go ahead and jot it down in the chat pane for us. So now we've answered the question why. We've pondered what it might look like for our club. Now it's time to dig down into the how, okay? And so when you are contemplating the how when starting a Rotary club, a satellite club, you need to explore it in 4 different phases. The first phase is sort of the research phase, where you have to determine how it's going to benefit the existing club. Next, then you shift to phase 2, where you actually draft up a proposal and take it to your leaders of the club. And then you shift to phase 3, which is to educate the club on the why. They need to know the why. You can't just spring it on them and say, here's the new club, good luck. You've got to explain the why clearly, and then we got to promote. And then you can shift to phase 4, where the club is actually birthed and you start getting new leaders within that club. And so, Julie, you want to start off by taking us down the road on phase 1, explore the idea?
So looking at your existing membership and seeing what's missing, who's not able to attend your meeting, what professions, areas of your community, ages, diversity like that, what's missing from your current membership, kind of understanding why they might be missing from your current club. Getting in touch, you're hearing some great stories today. I even heard in the breakout room, who else has started a satellite that you might be able to guide you as you ask some questions and consider some options or ideas that might be a good fit for your community. And what can you learn from their experiences? Not just from satellite club experiences, but also from other clubs. Something that might not be implemented in your sponsor club or your current club, and it might not be a good fit for them, but an idea that might be a great fit for this potential satellite. And also look at if you're drawing from the same kind of demographic from other local nonprofits. So if you're perhaps in competition with them, and if you are, that could be a good opportunity for collaboration. Then you want to look at designating your champion or possibly champions. And this is somebody that can mentor, support, and promote this satellite and really try and ramp up this participation. And you want to make sure that your satellite has at least 8 members. Now, in order to charter off as a new club, you would need 20 members. But the good thing about starting with 8 is that it gives you time to learn from your sponsor club and test some things out, start to see where things might work best. Creating a steering committee, getting people that are really on board and starting to drive the direction in which this club might go, and start thinking about a board, your board of directors, the positions that these people might hold, maybe even starting to designate assignments for who's going to lead those meetings. And then also looking for prospective satellite members themselves. We had some great ideas earlier. Howard was talking about former members of your club that maybe for whatever reason, the sponsor club was just not a great fit. And considering that if you do start a satellite and somehow you have fear that it's going to cannibalize your sponsor club, try to think about it in a way where it's not cannibalizing, because that person, that member, is leaving and possibly joining the satellite for a reason. They might have been on the cusp of leaving to begin with, or maybe there's something about this new club that speaks more to them. Either way, they're staying in Rotary, they're staying in a family of Rotary, and the collaboration continue on going forward.
Corey?
Yeah, now that you've identified the type of satellite club you're going to start and who your key people are to get it started, it's time to make it official. Make sure to present your proposal to your club board and share it with your assistant governor and district governor as well. Once you have the approval of your board and district, then you want to share that you'll be starting the new club satellite with your whole club, as well as share it with the community. You want to get everyone excited and look to identify who your biggest supporters are, and then get them on board to help move the club forward. And then the next step is to start to hold informational meetings of your new satellite club. Make sure to keep the content of your first meetings light. You don't want to overwhelm prospective members. If possible, hold your meetings, your first meetings at the same time of day as the planned satellite club meetings, same time, same place, and make sure to invite your club, sponsor club board members to early meetings, but make sure that it's your satellite club members that are ones that are running the show. Think of more of a mixer atmosphere for these early meetings. And once you have enough members signed up, it's time to fill out the satellite club application and move forward with your regular organizational meetings.
Julie?
Okay, so now that your satellite club has been formed, it's crucial to think about the support plan to make sure that the satellite is successful. Again, we heard some examples earlier of things that didn't go right, and sometimes that's okay. You know, you found out that way, it just didn't take. It didn't take as a new club. However, there's some things that can be put into place to ensure success of satellites going forward. And that's making sure, you know, you're having a member of the sponsor club attending those satellite meetings. It's a good idea for them to hear about some of the ideas they might be coming up with if they need guidance and support. And there might even be opportunities that that member might see with collaboration or mentorship. Also creating a committee that focuses on supporting the satellite club and their members, maybe even helping them identify prospective members to recruit or areas to recruit. You're doing this as a team effort, essentially. And then also being a little bit more relaxed and not focusing so much on protocol. You know, right now this club is trying to figure out who they are and self-identify, and you want to give them some room to let them spread their wings and try out different things that might work best for them. And then also holding joint meetings quarterly. This is a great way for, as new satellite club members join on board, for them to get to know the sponsor club and vice versa. Everyone can stay on the same page, and it helps create an opportunity for some good communication and future partnership. Then you also want to invite the chair of the satellite club to attend board meetings of the sponsor club. Now the chair, a satellite club doesn't technically have a president. While they're a satellite, they have a chair, and that's who oversees it. This will give them an idea of what a board meeting looks like, some of the things that they might need to consider when looking at the administrative or leadership aspects of leading their club. You also want to encourage the satellite club members to attend other Rotary events to really broaden their view of what Rotary can potentially be. It might inspire some future social or service project events, or maybe even grants. If, you know, a lot of clubs, they don't know how far Rotary really expands, and they don't get the internationality of it sometimes. This could really open their eyes. And you want to encourage them to work together on service projects. Again, people that don't really know who Rotary is, they just know Rotary. They often don't know the difference between the noon club or the evening club. They just know Rotary. So presenting a united front will really help build that brand in the community, help build awareness, and possibly attract members to both clubs, the satellite and the sponsor club.
So Julie, thank you for that. Now I wonder, are there any resources that are available that we could highlight for the participants this evening? So
some of the resources include, and this was included in what I had entered in the chat box, was a guide to satellite clubs. You know, satellites haven't been around forever, and luckily, as we learned about what satellite clubs are doing, we grabbed those best practices from all over the world and we put them in this guide for you. And you can find that at the Rotary Flexibility page. This is a great place to look if you're looking for something that's different from what your existing club is already doing. And we don't encourage flexibility for flexibility's sake. The whole point of it is that it's something that's needed. It's something that your community members, your current Rotary Club members, or maybe even members who have left are seeking out. So this might give you some even more ideas of what might be implemented into a new satellite. I was seeing in the chat that some people were talking about, you know, Zoom. You know, this keeps coming up, that meeting online might be a great way to bring in and engage other members. So You can check out flexibility. You'll also find the guide there, as well as the application and member forms. And then the Rotary membership page. There's a wealth of resources that are going to help you, whether you're sponsor club, satellite club, it doesn't matter. Connect for Good is a beautiful resource to give to any prospective or new member, and that really has a beautiful guide about what Rotary is all about and just how wide it reaches. Then you've got the Rotary Club Health Check. I love this resource. It's such an easy way to take a pulse of your club and how they're feeling about service projects or their meetings or socials. And you don't have to do all the surveys at once or one-page surveys. You could make it really fun. You can turn it into a raffle, get people participating, maybe, a bottle of wine, or even right now, if you wanted to do something online, you could have a gift card or something like that. Next step from there is strengthening your membership. This is a great, easy read, and it gives you some step-by-step actions and how you can build your membership plan. And then membership assessment tools. This is a deeper dive. If you're wanting to see, this might be great for sponsor clubs. If you're wanting to see why members are leaving, there's an exit survey. If you want to see why people, if they're happy with the current club state, there's a membership satisfaction survey. Use any of these surveys as a template, but I wouldn't recommend using all the surveys because that's a lot of surveys and who wants to do all of that. And then there's also the Zone website, that great amount of resources here. You have a list of experts, volunteers that have been in Rotary or Rotaract from anywhere from 10 to 30 years and have seen it all, done it all, and they're in those positions for a reason, and they can offer you a lot of support. There's also some best practices and some great videos that are a great way to start the conversation with your club about addressing membership. There's also the membership resource guide, and this is something that I update quarterly. This is specifically for Western United States, and it's just a catalog of all the RI produced resources that you can look at this guide electronically, see the brief description and who the resource might be for. You can click on the link and it will download automatically. And of course, if you ever get overwhelmed or if you just need a place to start from, you can reach out to me, Corey, or Steve, even Bailey. Bailey's your district membership chair. She's happy to offer you guidance and support and back you up in any way that you might need membership support.
And the thing about this document that Julie has created called the Membership Resource Guide is if you download it onto your computer, those are all hyperlinks there. And so, for instance, if you wanted to get to the brand new video on how to start a Rotary Club, you just scroll down the document to the second page and it's highlighted in red and it says it's brand new. You click on it and it takes you right to the video that Corey and Julie put together on how to start a Rotary Club. It's brand new, it's hot off the presses, and it's right there available for you to use. So that brings us to the question and answer period. So if you've got a question that you'd like to bring to us vocally, go ahead and raise your hand now. Corey will be keeping an eye on that and announcing who's going to ask the question, and then one of us will try to field it.
Actually, Steve, I've got one here from Rosemary that wants to know more about the Reno Satellite Club and what they did besides changing their meetings to the evening.
Well, they did. It's interesting because at first, I think what was novel about this was it really started as a alternative meeting time. They weren't really thinking satellite club when they started having this cocktail hour twice a month. It was just an opportunity for people to get together and have a cocktail. And then from there, it grew into the idea that, well, geez, a lot of these people that are attending this satellite club meeting are not coming to the main club lunch meetings. So they said they explored the idea of converting it, and it was something that was well received by the board, and it really just evolved from a cocktail hour getting together into a satellite club. So it wasn't really it's not the greatest example in one respect because there wasn't a lot of planning that was put into it. It was just something they decided to try, which is always good. People like, people are afraid of change, but they're not necessarily afraid to get together and have a drink with someone. So that's about all the detail I really have. I'd be happy to connect you with the gentleman that did it, Rosemary.
Our next hand up is Kathy Gibson.
Hi, I wonder if you can back up one slide, please. So down at the bottom there, keep your district and club members connected with online meetings. Not all clubs have gone online, believe it or not. Most of them have in our district, but not all of them. Are there some specific resources you can tell us about to keep our district and club members connected with online meetings?
Steve, do you mind if I take this one?
No, go ahead, Julie.
Okay, great. Well, recently there was Connecting the Rotary Online World webinar, and the recording is available. It was a fabulous webinar, really just such a great perspective, 4 different Rotarians from all corners of the world. And you get to hear about some of the things that they've been seeing in their region. But then even better, if you look at this recording, just below it, there's a link to a resource, and it's one of my favorite right now for a meeting online, and it's literally Connecting Online FAQ.
Yeah.
It's so chock full of just everything. And we're not talking about just resources that RI staff have produced. We've really sought out the best of the best. There were definitely Rotarians stepping out from the woodwork once the pandemic was in, full view. Everybody was sheltering in place, and you saw these talents and these resources emerging, and we tried to capture all of it. So I would recommend that Connecting Online webinar, and then the FAQ that goes along with it. And that's actually linked in the membership resource guide as well under webinars. So you can find it there. We might be able to send it with you. Bill might be able to link that as well.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Looks like Howard's had his hand up for a while.
Yeah.
Hi there, this is Howard. And, I want to go back. I know we've talked a lot about Zoom calls, but I want to give you an example from my very own club. And we have a Zoom call every Tuesday morning. And we've had more people in the Zoom club meeting than we've had at a face-to-face meeting in a long time. And interestingly enough, the people that are there on the Zoom meeting that haven't been to the face-to-face meeting are people who are former members who no longer can join our club because of time or money or distance. And I have a feeling that once we get past this COVID, whether or not we continue on with Zoom or not, I think that's the time when our club is going to go back to those members that have come back to see us and say, hey, what about doing an Emerald City E-Club or an Emerald City Zoom Club? And I think it's very, very exciting.
That's great, great example. I've heard a lot of clubs reporting that their attendance is higher than it's ever been since they shifted to Zoom meetings. And we've seen a lot of people at the Bellevue Breakfast Club pop in that we haven't seen in ages. So it's really interesting to watch how this is evolving. Oh, another hand?
Yeah, it looks like Bailey has her hand up.
Hi everyone. This was a great presentation, you guys. I love it. I think especially for Rotary 4, but all the Rotaries, I think this is just showing how Rotary continues to think outside the box and think of ways that are going to enhance the experience overall. Because I think it was it Howard that was mentioning you're reaching out to people now that maybe are no longer coming to the meetings and stuff, and you're finding ways to reconnect and reach out to new people. As you guys are building up these different satellite clubs, you guys provide a lot of great resources. Have there been other kind of practices where these satellite clubs are really finding ways to not only connect to maybe what would be their other kind of permanent club, like if Seattle 4 was to create one within the area, but also with the other satellite clubs to really, you know, feed off of each other. And especially as we go towards more of a digital and a Zoom meeting structure, has anyone thought of, you know, there are ways of really connecting some of these satellite clubs together as well, so that they don't feel like just a smaller piece of a larger puzzle, but they really are kind of interconnected with Rotary as a whole.
That's interesting. I don't know that that we've seen anything like that, but it's what a great idea to share best practices and help each other out. Maybe there could be a work group on the RI website or something, Julie, where we could invite all the satellite clubs to share best practices. That'd be pretty easy to set up.
Yeah, just because I know, like on our Zoom calls that we have on Mondays that we had at 4 and everything, it's always great to hear, especially in the breakout rooms, like best practices from other clubs. I could see this being something similar, getting really great benefits out of it.
Yeah, good idea.
I like that a lot. There is a membership best practices discussion group. Sometimes it gets a little forgotten, but actually they're going to be releasing very shortly a learning topics center in the Learning Center. And people can upload their best practices, things that they've learned from their own club experience there too. So it's not necessarily something that staff are just posting to. It's Rotarians can also share. So I think there's a great opportunity for satellite clubs there. Absolutely.
Any more hands, Corey?
We do have a comment in the chat about the idea that having an evening club where you just have a cocktail in order to save money maybe doesn't necessarily save money, and maybe there's a better reason to start an evening club. I can jump in on this one. You know, in District 5100, which is just down the road, one of the Portland area clubs just outside of Portland had a number of spouses and friends of members who couldn't attend a noon meeting. You know, people who worked at the big hospital and things like that, but they still wanted to be involved in Rotary. They were going to Rotary after hours events. They were going to fundraisers and things like that. And so the club threw out this idea of a satellite club, and they had a lot of spouses and people that maybe attended one meeting, but the noon didn't work for them, and they started the satellite out of that. So sometimes just an alternative meeting time in the evening isn't as much about drinking and being casual as it is about just an alternative time. And if you've already got a group of people, they were a sizable club to start with, but that meant that they had a lot of friends and family. They were able to start a good-sized satellite club out of that, just giving people an alternate meeting time.
Great idea. All right, well, we're going to wrap it up about 2 minutes early. So thank you everyone for participating. Thank you, David Bobanek, for helping us run the back office on this. And once again, a sincere thank you to Julie Aubry and Corey Lopardi for participating in our Satellite Club webinar this evening.